Isabel?
No, good.
Okay.
Oh, wait, let me, can I just say one thing? I know for the terms of you guys laying out, if it's at all possible, I'd love to have you guys out there. If it's not a big deal. But you know how we each do a section? If it's not a big deal, but I will not, if the event of a rain date, I will not be able to make the Thursday. I can only be there Wednesday.
And of course, I think Mr. Potowski would like to have the case.
Probably.
And the last item on my recommendations, just the donations to the district. We had received a $1,000 donation to West Jaga Middle School Anti-Bullying Program Anonymous, and then we also received a $2,400 grant to purchase 6 LabQuest analyzers used in science classes. That donor was from the fund, the Cleveland Foundation, and the Wilhelm Family Fund. And that ends my recommendations.
Any questions? Discussions?
I do have a question, which is a very just a question, which I'm assuming won't be anyway, but we're looking at the contracts for the various summer, like summer school and so on. And I was noticing that the rates are all over the place. Is that because there are widely different number of hours that are some summer school and the summer sports and so on? Are these rates of the supplementals, like, what do they reflect?
Contract, I mean, they're based on the supplemental agreement contract.
Okay.
Based on class categories, classification.
How does the sum that someone's going to be paid for that, how does that divide?
Based on seniority and, answer that one as far as how to calculate.
It's based on how the negotiations went. The head coaches get paid more, assistants get paid more, a little bit less. And then sometimes they split the contract, so they'll split one contract in half. Different sports are paid different amounts based on time and effort, and then they have involved in that. So these that we're looking at are the fall, high school sports that are involved, not the summer. There's no summer sports involved.
Well, there's extended school year, there's some.
Just for the one, our summer school.
The summer school? Okay.
And that was the same as it's been for the last couple of years.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. I never thought they'd ask. So.
I have a question, Karen. I noticed that we had discussed this over the air with the Lindsay Westwood fourth grade teacher. We switched it. The minutes still say Westwood. Just switched it.
Okay, any more discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Dorsey?
Yes.
Mrs. DeTore?
Yes.
Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Chelsky?
Yes.
Dr. Cox?
Yes. Treasurer's report.
All right. I understand I'm in between you and Kathy.
Kyrie's playing, I just got the update.
Sorry about that. All right, treasurer's reports. This is our monthly financial statements for the month of April. We have treasurer's report A. This is our investments that we hold at various institutions. We have about $17.7 million held there. That is the highest we'll see. They will be going down from there. No other additional funds are expected. Well, maybe some small additional funds are expected, but that will be the top of what we have. Treasurer's report B, you'll see our reconciliation. We reconcile to 0. You'll see the adjusted bank balance match our investment balance as well. The balance for the general ledger will match our fin sum, which is on the next sheet. This will be our summary of all of our funds that we have available, so you can know that we have $17,766,205, and that will match our balance for the general ledger. So we want to make sure that's still in the balance. We have a couple of federal funds that still have negative balances in our fin sum. Those will be, as we go along, they'll get taken care of as we have additional reimbursements from the federal government on those grants. We also have going on a federal grant audit going on our IDEA funds Part B. So that will be going on the month of June. That's due at the end of June 30th. That's a self-study. This is kind of the first time they've had that type of audit for us. So we don't know what to anticipate from that audit, but we will continue to enter with the state of Ohio for that. And that's just a random access, a random determination. It wasn't for anything inappropriate. Third report B, this is our operations report. This is our year-to-date figures for our budget. We do have hard copies, just in case we print those off. We are a little ahead in our revenues. We're about $56,000 ahead in revenues. Like I said, this will be the last revenues we have come in, the last major revenues. You'll notice that we're a little higher on general property taxes. This is due to a high delinquency recovery. We collected 102% of our property taxes this year. That will not happen again. We normally collect about 97%. So this is unusual for us. So in the forecast, you'll see that adjusted as well. But they had very high collections this year. And then the other local sources were down a little bit. That's because of our tuition between districts being a little less than what we had anticipated. And then if you look at expenditures, we are over in personnel services. This is due to a couple of items. One is we had severance pay that we talked about it. In addition to that, we had some nurses that were traditionally in purchase services, but we hired them, so they're now in our payroll. Personal that happened after the year end. And then we have some higher supplemental costs, and we have some additional higher substitution costs for some of our teachers. So that is contributing to that unfavorable variance.
Will we see anything coming up with supplementals anytime soon?
We have a supplemental list that we've gone through, that the administrators have gone through. I've given that to Rich for him to look at, and then he can make those recommendations this summer when he gets back on, has enough time to talk with the administrators on that. So we have a complete list of them. We've kind of targeted those areas that we think we can make some reductions. You see higher than favorable variance on employee retirement insurance benefits. That's from our insurance that we had some additional recoveries from, and then purchase services. Purchase services will probably not hold. We have a lot of end of the year bills going to the DFC. We'll try to pay as many as we can, but those are federal probably that will be reduced, so we won't see that. Materials and supplies, we're having a favorable variance there as well, about $180,000. We anticipate that $1 million we see in total will dissipate as we go along. May and June are very heavy months for paying bills. We'll pay all those off. We'll see that go away. So we'll see that catch up. And then that is questions. Report E, this is our food services. You have the totals for revenues and expenses for 2014. We're trying to recover that from the system, but the system numbers are not, the detail doesn't agree with the total. So I decided just to give you the total instead of trying to manufacture the detail. So you have a total of $320,000. You can see that we're ahead in our revenues year to date from what we had last year, and then we're a little bit ahead, a little higher in expenses, but compared to where we were last year, we had $14,800 loss. This year we have a $5,390 loss. So we're making improvements, which are very close. I know the city's been working very diligently on getting those things identified and using up the inventory that we have in place right now. The last one I moved to add, this is our funds that we received from grants and for federal grants, any foundational work that we've had. There's really no change since we showed that last month. We've had additional funding there. No new grants. Any questions on
So I have a motion to approve the treasurer's recommendations. So moved. Do I have a second?
All right, the big item on this recommendations is the 5-year forecast. I have a PowerPoint presentation to go through, should take about 15 minutes. Can we do that? We got 10 minutes. I know the audience has turned very ugly. All right. Yeah, I'm losing my audience already. Oh, Okay, every May, we're required by law to update our 5-year forecast from the one we determined in October. Mr. Thorson goes, didn't you do that? I said, yeah, 6 months ago, so it's time to update it. Projections of 2015 where we'll end. We're anticipating property taxes 17.7. We won't get any additional property taxes we talked about. The state foundation will stay $3.6 million. Right now, we've gotten about $3.4 million of that. Homestead, $2.6 million. That is representing about 10% of our total revenues. That is in, all of those have been collected. Our other local, $1.9 million. We're running about, we got probably about another 200,000 on that one. And then the rest of it being items of restricted and other are still in place. We don't have any additional items coming here. So we should finish the year about $26.3 million. This gives us our revenues over 5 years. This is in our forecast we projected going forward. We have a slight, it looks much greater than it is, but it's a slight decrease in our projections. They're kind of a 1% decrease. Most of that is related to, we had very high collections and delinquencies. Some of that is going through as well. In addition to that, we have some of our district tuitions between the districts that is going to be reduced, and so that's showing a reflection of that, those changes as well. Our property taxes are our largest portion of our revenue. That's staying consistent, about 67%. State foundation money staying very, consistent as well, about 14%. And you have slides available to you as well. Homestead, 10%. We're very consistent. We are not generating significant increases in property taxes or homestead. Since we have emergency levies, that homestead stays in place. If we have a new levy, again, remember that homestead rollback will not be paid by the state anymore. That will be borne by the taxpayers themselves. Our other local revenue has declined just a bit. But we're still very consistent on where we get our revenue. The types of revenue that we have, obviously local property tax is our main source. We have 3 types of real estate. Utility property taxes are the only place we're really seeing an increase. We saw a 12.4% increase in public utility property taxes. That also is unusual. That comes from the state. The state determines what the property values are for income, the cell towers, all the property, all the utilities that we have available. So we saw a 12% increase, which was very unusual. And then we have delinquencies, which is the third part of that local property tax. Our real estate has remained flat. We were about $640 million in property tax valuations, but we do have a little bit of increase in public utilities. Delinquent collections range from 2.3 to 3.4%. We saw, on average, we had unusual high collections this year that probably added about $40,000 to $50,000 of additional collections. Our unrestricted grants and aid is made up of our state foundation. If you remember, the biennium budget is still under deliberation. Today, the Senate finished their deliberations and are bringing out their budget to talk about as well. We'll stay flat in the House budget. We're going to stay flat in 16 and 17. So what I've done in the 5-year projection is we are the same funding levels as fiscal year 15. Unless that changes between now and May 31st, but this is the one that we're going to go for. This is our projection for 5 years. Again, we have about, in the 5-year projection, we're also anticipating that the guarantee will be reduced. This is the guarantee portion of our foundation payment. It's not based upon ADM, it's based upon kind of a fluctuating cost that they're trying to get us to our $3.4 million. They want to get rid of that portion. They want us to go on a formula basis. And so we're going to reduce that about 10%. And that's been consistent with what we've done in the forecast over the years. Outside the formula, we have casino money. We still receive some casino money, about $110,000. Going forward, it's based on ADM. So we'll probably go down to about $97,500 going forward, and we'll keep that consistent for the next 4 or 5 years. We also receive Special Education Transportation Fund. That's been consistent about, I think we got about $79,800 this year. We also received a preschool additional add-ons to our foundation payment, and that was approximately $80,000 as well. So we'll continue to have those additional. So you normally will see the foundation payment be $3.4 million. In the revenue, you'll see $3.6 million. That's made up of that special ed transportation and the preschool add-on. In the restricted, we have catastrophic cost. Anything, we have 2 levels of catastrophic cost. One is for those students that are in the categories 5 or 6. They can have cost of education over $32,000. And then if you're in the categories of 2, 3, 4, then it's over $27,275. We have a number of students that meet that qualification. Last year, we received $220,000 of additional catastrophic aid. This year, we anticipated, it's all determined how much the state puts in a pool. The state puts together a pool amount of money, however many people apply for it, you get a percentage of it back. So it depends on how many people apply for the catastrophic aid. So we'll anticipate probably at least $100,000 to $150,000. We hope to have more, it just depends on how many people apply for it. People are still filing for it. We filed last month, so we hope to have it by the year end, but it may not be until July. Medicaid reimbursement is also in there. We get additional federal funding for Medicaid. It's federal funding, but it goes to the state for Medicaid grants. So we have physical therapy, nursing, and speech. They're also looking at whether we can have special ed funding for transportation through the Medicaid program as well. That's what to see. Right now, we had a Medicaid audit. We lost about $8,000 worth of funding. We're fighting that with the Medicaid audit. So we're going through, and that's for 2011. We're now just filing 2013. So those are a little bit behind. So we'll see that. But we're attempting to recover that. In the property tax allocation, this line, the $2.6 million, this is where our homestead and rollback is located. And then all other, this is where our Mets and bond flow-through money, we should anticipate $410,000. They wrote the check on the 15th, but we haven't seen that, so I don't know when they're going to send that through. through, but we should receive still about $400,000 this year on that. We also had the additional contribution for the turf that's also in that line item, which will not be carried forward as you go along. That's also a reason for kind of decline. And then we have our tuition between other districts as well, in there as well. Our expenses, as you can see, we're going to hit about $26,466,000. This is a little better than what we had anticipated in our previous 5-year forecast. Our salaries, again, $13.6 million, benefits 5.1, purchase services 5.5. That's up a little bit. Last year we had this $1.6 million left in purchase orders that weren't closed out. We rolled over to 2015. We really are trying to figure out what that means to this year, and what was carried over and all that. So we've added just a little bit of cushion. There's a little bit of cushion in there. So I hope it won't be all of it. We've got a little bit there. Supplies, we think that we'll hit about $706,000, and then equipment $852,000. We have all the purchase orders in. There's nothing else being purchased. Jim. He's the only one that, since everybody else has cut off their purchase orders. We cut off purchase orders in April, except for Jim. And then graduation, that was the only two that we left those are going on. So those are closed out. We've asked the.
It's not for Jim, by the way, it's for the schools.
It's just for Jim. And then we are now asking everybody who has an open purchase order to close those now. So we didn't do that last year, so we're doing that now. So we should have those closed out and then cleaned up. And then in other, those are where we have some of our fees as well as our interest in principal payments. Those are included in $550,000. So that's stay consistent. So if we look at those on a comparative basis, no favor. We see salaries going up. Now, what I've done in salaries is you see the impact of the 3-year contract. So projected in 2015, that's $13,700,000. In 2015 or 2016, we see our 2.25% increase plus our steps. That equals about 4.7% increase in our total payroll. Now, remember, we had reductions in force, and then we had retirements, okay, and a resignation. So those combine to have a slight increase in 2016. All right, so we have a slight increase of about $100,000. So normally we would have had a much larger increase, but because of the retirements, again, we had 7 or 8 teachers that are not be coming back to see us. And that still anticipates that we'll have 2 off the recall that's coming back. So those are included in our cost. And then in 2017, we have the last year of our contract, a 2% increase plus a step. That anticipates about 4.75% increase when you project it out. And then as you go into 2018, 2019, I can't tell you what the percentage raise is because we don't have a contract in place, but I did go ahead and move everybody a column over, so their steps are included. And then last year, in October, we did not include the steps, so this year we included the steps. So we at least have an anticipation of what that is. If you look at just the step increases, that's about 1.75%. Now, we had thought about we'd have additional risks. We usually have about 1 teacher because of Lindsay decreasing in size. So I've left that in this year, in the other years going forward, just in case we have personnel changes at the high school. So, because that's not reducing, but we're reducing the elementary. So those are in there just in case we need that going forward. And that just relates to what I just talked about, the decreases. So 8.5 positions reduced in the 2015-2016 time period. And that just gives you a history where you see the reds we've always benefits, we see a slight increase. That's built in a 15% increase in healthcare and overall healthcare. That makes the majority of it. The rest of the items in there is our STRS and our SERS payments for retirement. So those are built in based on the number of employees that we have here. So those are. Benefits, if you look at our estimate for 2015, our health care is going to be about $2.9 million. That's going to be a 12.5% increase overall, is what we originally budgeted for. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be averaging about 4.5%. Dental, we had a 0% increase, $135,000. Life is about $9,000. Vision went up a little bit because our contract negotiations went up from $14,000 to $17,000, so I think substantial. Retirement, again, is still at 14%. Workers' comp, Medicare, and unemployment, we pay as billed. So if we have no one filing for unemployment, we pay zero. If we have additional people, we pay that on demand. We don't pay. Services, we see $5.5 million in there. I've taken that down a little bit in 2016. We've really looked at that. We're going to be focused on purchase services this year as an area of, a targeted area of concern. Just looking at who we purchase from, what we're working with the ESC, with our, staying with Geauga County. This is something we're going to take some time. Ken and I have already found some areas where we see duplication in payments, or areas where they're charging us. So this will be something that he and I focus on very much this year in really trying to reduce that amount that we're paying for purchase services. And the ESC amount is going to be $2 million. The additional items in the purchase services area is vocational tuition and Excel Tech. This is a high area for us. We have great programs. The high school does a lot of utilization with that, but it is something that's outside what our normal tuition transfer is. And that comes straight out of our, we never see that bill, it comes straight out of our foundation payment. The ESC administration and this is our 2015 number, $308,000. I have I'll hand that out to you later, a list of what we're going to pay now. We have a $50,000 rebate we're going to get on the ESC administration, so that will go down to about $258,000. So we'll see that come back around. Electric, $211,000 is what we're seeing. Our PSEO tuition is about $187,000. We had anticipated that being about $145,000, so we're seeing a $35,000 increase, and that will change to college credit funds for next year. And I can tell you there are a lot of people very interested in that program, so that could potentially increase. But we have about $190,000 for next, well, reached up to about $200,000. Our technology services, this is where we pay LGCA. This is what Sean was referring to. That's going to be consistent between the 2 years, along with our E-rate rebate. Our autism scholarship program, this is also the John Peterson Autism Scholarship Program. There's about a $50,000 increase in this from over what we had anticipated. This scholarship program, the John Peterson Scholarship Program, and Ken is much more well-versed in that, is we don't have any control over that. The people are in non-public schools can apply for it based on various services, and then the state will reimburse them and they charge us for that. So we have IEP discussions with them at their schools. We monitor what they're doing there, but that money is taken out of our foundation payment as well as an autism scholarship as well. We have fewer autism scholarships than we do John Peterson. Our community school tuition, in addition, these are what we have online students, or students that are outside our district. That's $171,000. We had anticipated, based on last year, $130,000. So all of those things have increased significantly in our purchase services. So we will be working with Ken, working with our EMIS coordinator, just make sure we know where everybody is, because every time we change somebody, that creates a payment coming out of our foundation payment. Natural gas is about $132,000, and our transportation rental is about $115,000. And that transportation rental is for our Metzenbaum, the garage. Our supplies, we're projecting about a 2% increase over supplies. So they're going to stay relatively steady. Supplies that we see are where we see textbooks. So you see that 2015 projection at $700,000, moving up to $882,000. A large portion of that is related to textbooks. So we had projected for 25, we spent $55,000 is what we spent in 2015, but we anticipate a large purchase for math books, math, as we look in 2016. And then we will go on a 5-year rotation. I know Nancy and I talked about that 5-year rotation. We'll talk to Rich and make sure he's in agreement with that, looking at the different concerns we have.
Is that why you're continuing to go up so,
Just a little bit.
really, in the general supplies, you're going to go up, but going from 706 to 966? Is that textbooks every single year?
We budgeted some textbooks in there for every single year. Now they'll go, depending on what you buy. So math may be very expensive, then we'll go down a little bit, then we'll go up a little bit for science, then we'll go down a little bit and go up. So it depends on what you're buying, and so those textbooks have been in there. So you'll see kind of the 200,000 in 16, then it goes down to 150, then 200, and those are just, and it's not just textbooks, it's textbooks plus the software that you want to buy as well, because you may not be looking at just textbook purchases.
Right.
So licenses, there's,
Fuel too.
do what?
It's pretty moderate increase in fuel too.
Yeah, this is a very
I'm
minuscule,
Yeah.
but are we seeing any decrease in paper because we're using more technology, or is it about the same or more?
I don't see any decrease in paper. We talked about this with, Diane and Stacy went to our OSC trade show to see if what we can do about buying, getting a deal on better paper. I mean, we just have a lot more. It didn't decrease our paper. Now, we do monitor that. Jim gets a report. I get a report on that to see if we have additional, above what we have allocated. We are consistently above that.
I think that's something that administrators could help with the teaching staff. There's so frivolous.
Yeah, I know that they're doing their newsletters electronically now, which helps a great deal, but there's still reminders that can go out that we can use. Capital outlays, that spike is purely related to one of the additional purchases. We have capital purchases this year in 2015. We're steady, we have a very small increase. We do have technology built into this, about $75,000 to $100,000 in technology. Now, Jim and I and Sean have had discussions on the 003, the permanent improvement, but there are significant technology purchases that need to be made for the network and one-to-one. So those will be coming out of the 003 account, and that will be, we'll talk about those in the June. Other expenses, this is where we have our fees for the fees for collection of our property taxes, along with our election fees and our property, our principal interest. Shows the same story we showed in October. We will have positive fund balances going through 2018, and then we'll eat into that starting in 2018, and then 2019 we will have a negative balance. So we're still seeing the need for new money. This still has in this projection balance is the $3.7 million emergency levy that ends in 2017, and collections start, capital can start in 2018, so you still see those in there as well. So it's anticipating the passage of that emergency levy. We're still looking at new money. This is something we'll have to talk about on how we want to look at this levy fatigue or levy cycle, how we want to address that when we go into, in 2016, 2017, how we want to address this new money that we're looking for. But this shows the same scenario. Any questions? All right. Like I said, that will be turned into the state by the 31st of May. We also have a listing of vehicle checks. Then announcements, we have a couple of there that are still related to the payment or the high school musical. We know we had a little issue with that with our new director there. And then the recommendations to make the accounts payable contract with Mentor and move forward with the hiring of a part-time accounts receivable. for accounts payable, accounts receivable personnel. And then you have the school fees, as Jackie mentioned earlier, we're seeing them stabilize or have some actual reductions in those school fees. Very happy about the administrators taking a look, they went back to their teachers and worked very diligently to say, okay, what do you really need, what do we have to have in the budget? Because they are higher than what we would like to see. President, that's my recommendation.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Katsowski,
Yes.
Dr. Combs,
Yes.
Mr. Thorson,
Yes.
Mrs. DeTore. Yes. Mr. Douglas.
Yes. Okay, standing committees, Jackie, you had a policy committee meeting, right?
I did. I'm still, it wasn't as large of a packet as it normally is, and quite frankly, 90% of it is policy that just needs to be implemented. I think we'll do a first reading coming up in the next couple of meetings here. There is something when you guys get it, they're going to give it to you guys all electronically. We'll go walk through it because there is a portion that we have to discuss. That's a recommendation, but not necessarily something we have to do. I think up for discussion that we need to talk about. Yeah, we'll have to do the first reading.
Excellent, thank you. Tom?
Oh, I'm sorry, we did right. I was telling Dan earlier, the one really good thing to hear is that Jim Condon, who comes and sits down with us and tells us everything about the policy, it also told us that as a service to us, they also do guidelines, and that he has looked through all of our guidelines that haven't been done in 15 plus more years than that. And so I had recommended that he speak with Dr. Marquardt before that gets presented to the board to make sure that that was something really exciting, at least for me to hear, because it hadn't been done.
We have job descriptions that are back in the 80s.
We do. That
We
part
really
we never
neglected,
changed.
yeah, we really neglected that. We need to change that.
Well, the administrative guidelines are really nice to have those online because they're handwritten.
Dr. Post, did you? Karen and I spoke, it was Tuesday. What was last week? Was it Friday? I'm sorry. And pretty much everything we went over tonight, we've gone over. And we talked a little bit more about the new contract and go offering that position. Gentlemen, you guys have your meetings, have your committees? Okay. New business. Mr. Douglas, we'll start with you.
I want to take advantage of the time that we're, getting ready for our new superintendent, and I did a little bit of research into our policy on information that we received from administrators. And in 0165.1, it reads section B. I won't read the whole policy to you. I'm sure tonight's getting composed already. But the agenda of the regular monthly meeting or special meetings. You know what? I'm sorry. Sure. The agenda of the regular monthly meeting or special meeting shall be accompanied by a report from the superintendent on information relating to the district with such recommendations as she or he shall make. And I did some more research and found out that this goes back to our long-term superintendent Pottinger, Derringer, and then something happened around the Palmer era where weekly reports to the board just seemed to fall off or were not happening at all. And it would help me. I know I've been on the board for a year and I haven't received a report from either the treasurer or board of superintendent. And that's no criticism against our sitting interim superintendent that's been here on a part-time basis, and I think he's done an outstanding job. Always called me back, or when I called him, I had immediate access to him, if not immediately, within minutes. So this is not anything against you, Mr. Nutter, but I think we sit at a wonderful opportunity for we're going to hire a full-time superintendent who comes in, a lot of energy, enthusiasm. He's here this evening. And I'm sure in his current school district, he does regular weekly reports to the Board of Education, which helps us make these decisions on the agenda that we receive before the meeting. And I think that's something that we should reaffirm here. And also include our treasurer to get that information from her so that we're on top of things. We had a parent show up here a couple of meetings back about the trash on the turf, and there was a complaint that the board members were slow getting back to her. Well, if we had the information from the superintendent in terms of that's more their job function than a board member function, we would have had that information and been able to report back to the constituent how that works. So I thought it was great that we would have this discussion. And again, we could do this in two parts. Part this meeting, I know the meeting is getting long, and in the next meeting leading up to when Dr. Marquardt joins, I'd like to have this in place and ready for him during his time.
Would you like to make a formal motion, Mr. Davis?
Not this evening. I wanted us to have some discussion about that and see how
Well,
you felt about it.
I guess my question is it's already in our policy. So what we need to do now, I mean, are you recommending that there's a change to the policy or that we're making sure that the policies are being followed? Because to me, I'm reading it and it's saying it's there. We just need to make sure that the follow through happens.
Yeah, because it's not happening.
But that's what I'm saying, is there a change or an addition that you want to make to this? Or does this sum up what you want to say and it's just not being done?
There's some changes because it doesn't
Okay.
have language in there about the treasurer.
Okay.
Which again, those were our two direct reports, the superintendent and treasurer.
And weekly too.
Some kind of actually putting in what we're doing there. The second is for facilities and technology. There are people, we do have expertise in those areas that we can tap into, and particularly to, in the short term, create a long-term plan for our facilities, because we have pretty much been doing things ad hoc without a broad plan. And Jim, for instance, is only one person. He can't do everything, be everywhere, and anticipate every need. And by
I don't
tapping
know
into
if he has created several maintenance plans from what we used to have. So I don't want to say that
Oh,
we've
yeah.
made huge strides in the maintenance.
we've come a long way. What I would like to see is us create a committee of people with landscape backgrounds, design backgrounds, engineering, architecture backgrounds. Get a few people together, and the first task I would think would be to create a facilities and landscaping plan, because people constantly complain that our schools don't look as good as they could. Well, by having a plan, it would allow us to implement this incrementally, and we could do things in the plan like a person with a landscaping background could tell us and create a list of the plants that would be the preferred plants for certain uses, because we'd be looking at things like longevity and survivability, drought resistance, lack of invasiveness, and so on. So we'd be able to get those things from a professional business that would then be part of our plan. So that, for instance, using this example, when we went to landscape a building, we have a list of plants which we know will both be compatible with our overall look that we're seeking, and at the same time be low in maintenance and reasonable cost. So that would be the goal of this kind of advisory committee.
Before I comment on that, thank you for cutting the trees down at the high school. Thank you. On that note, can we, instead of starting from scratch and reinventing the wheel, we started the wonderful community engagement, staff engagement of the long-range plan. And that was a very basic document, because what we were going to do with each of those steps then became the committee for that specific thing to figure out those details. We made sure, and they made sure when we were doing it, that they were very broad and we weren't focused on the details or the plan of it. Is that not something we can touch base with again? Because I think kind of got left by the wayside the past year. And organize it, or have Dr. Marquardt take a look at it, and organize it in a way that's priority levels. I know when we first started all this, it became, technology and communications was on the front run. And those 5 categories, finance and communications and facility and all of those things. But maybe it's a good start for Dr. Marquardt to look at that and come up with an idea that we can implement based off of that. Since so much hours and time went in from already community members and staff.
Let me ask you a question too. When you look at this, and do you envision it being in these committees that we have
I
now?
would say under the committee, yeah.
So then you would organize, like,
Yeah.
for operations, you would reach out to community members.
Yeah, and what I would see actually, Dan, is I would see us creating something in the bylaws so the board would approve who was serving on these committees, because I would see this as a sort of direct arm of the board, reporting directly to the board, so that we didn't have people engaging in this, in good faith, believing that their recommendations were going to be taken seriously, and then not, so that they're actually working, with the administration of the board. So we would do the same thing, in essence, that we do.
Are you
with our
looking for
board
someone with
work.
those specific qualities for
Yeah.
that specific committee?
Exactly.
Or just be that, I'm interested in that, I
Right.
want to be on that
No.
committee, you have to have a.
We want to recruit people who would actually have expertise in these areas, so that we can get some really good advice that could, really aid the administrators in doing this and aid the board in making these decisions, what to fund.
And it's interesting you say that, a community member in their own community talked to me about different plans for, they were in charge of SeaWorld when SeaWorld was developed, and they developed that whole plan for SeaWorld, and I thought, wow, we could really tap into that expertise, plus with, the generosity of the community and all the, the central landscapers that are willing to help, and I think that's an excellent idea. I really do. That's,
Well, how about the parent that offered to us to help with policies, that was writing policies for grants? I mean,
Right, I remember that guy, he was with a consulting company, I think it was Tony Blair's consulting company, wasn't it? But in any event, this guy was willing to do this, I forget his name, but he was willing to do this, and yeah,
as a
absolutely.
parent.
So I propose those first two, because those are the simplest to determine where people's qualifications are. Policy, we love them, this guy, if we use them, that's great, but how many people are there like that? But I think in terms of, facilities and technology, and in terms of financial strategy, I think those are two places where you find people with very clearly delineated expertise, and then, bring them in and see what we can come up with.
I think it's a great idea. I think that, so the next meeting, we'll try to implement how that will look, and then see if we can make that part of the policy.
It's going to be, I guess, Mike and I spent this weekend talking to somebody from the Grid Ag Club, and I wasn't aware that the baseball field was inoperable or unusable. But,
5 home games out of 22.
so, I mean, somebody from the Grid Ag Club or somebody who was invested in that kind of thing. could-
Maybe whether they're not an expert, but they could add, right?
Well,
what
if
you're thinking.
you'd be interested in the need and how you arrange the need, versus the field, because
Yeah, that was pretty shocking, wasn't it?
Yeah.
To find out how bad that field is.
Or how about our track?
Our track.
We didn't have track.
so having more direct communication to speed that process up.
Yeah, I don't think when we define that, I think we want to be careful, not to just be experts, but, again, not to have somebody who just has a passing interest. But, because we have community members that have some real vested interest, who've been putting their own time and effort or asking favors to get things done for us. I think it's been very, very beneficial for Jim and for the school. I'd love to see that continue, but I love this idea. I think it's going to be great.
Can I ask, Karen, can you ask Sandy Tyler if she can send over a copy to Dr. Markland of that long-range plan? And if it's just like reading, I think it's valuable.
Okay, well, thank you. I think that's an excellent idea as well. I appreciate it, Joe. Okay, announcement of our next board meeting, our regular board meeting.
We talked about, we need another board meeting to get the bids out and for the treasurer.
That's what I was going to ask. You didn't
Right.
tell us because Dr. Schultz and I were going to be at the 22nd meeting. If there was something that we have to do.
The bids we'll open up the bids on the 3rd, so we need anything, need a bid on that, so a special meeting for that. And then if you're not gonna make the 22nd, we still need to approve the June budget.
When is the June budget meeting completed?
We need the first year, so June 2016, so it's.
You're ready to go. Here's what I'd like to say. Could we move this date altogether so that we're not having 2 meetings in June?
We go to the 15th, because we have to close out some of them, so the 15th are early as I can do on.
It's too late for you.
It was gonna be the 10th, can't go 5 more days yet, a weekend. Can we go to 15th?
Can you do yours in a special meeting?
Why don't we do like a 1 o'clock in the afternoon?
Why don't we do a special meeting?
8 a.m.
Why don't we do a special meeting for that, Karen, and then we can
Move the
determine.
22nd on,
To the 15th.
to the 15th.
Everybody else look at their 15th, June 15th, Douglas, if that's okay with you?
Dr. Fox is on the 22nd.
15th, okay?
Wait, will you run, Dr. Foss, will you be around the 15th? 15th, are you gonna be gone all of June?
No, I'm leaving on the 17th.
Okay, better 15th.
Are we talking 7?
Well,
Regular board meeting?
well, he's talking 15th to move the regular board meeting to the 15th instead of the 22nd, and then have a special board meeting, which we can discuss on.
It is on
You can do that anytime after.
And you're saying after the 3rd? Okay, so we'll come up with a special board meeting after the 3rd, we'll do it early in the morning, or,
And that'll just be for the bids, right?
that's for the bids. Okay, that works. So announcement of our next board meeting will be a regular meeting, 7 PM. The 15th is when? Monday, June 15th, here in the community, in the school community. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Katsowski?
Yes.
Dr. Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Thorson?
Yep.
Mrs. DeVore?
Yeah.
Mr. Douglas?